Hey everyone, Bill Sheridan with the MACPA. You know, the cool thing about going to a national conference is that every now and then you get to run into some pretty big names in the accounting world. And that's exactly what happened to Tom Hood and I recently. We attended the 2012 XBRL US conference in Austin. And while we were there, we ran into Terri Polley. Now, Terri is president and CEO of the Financial Accounting Foundation. That's the parent organization of both the Financial Accounting Standards Board and the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So when it comes to accounting standards, names don't get much bigger than Terri Polley. She agreed to sit down and talk with us a little bit about XBRL and the impact that it might be having on accounting standards. And this one is worth paying attention to, folks. XBRL is here. It's here to stay, and it goes way beyond the public company financial reporting world. It's going to have an impact on most of the things that you and I do from now on. So Tom Hood conducted this interview, so let's take a listen to what Terri Polley has to say about XBRL and accounting standards.
So Terri, you know, one of the things that you're chairing this conference this year, and you opened it this morning. What's significant about that? Why FAF and XBRL? I never would have imagined those two at this stage together so much.
Yeah, it's an interesting confluence. The FAF and the FASB were always peripherally involved with XBRL, and then I would say over the course of time when the SEC decided that the FAF and the FASB should be the ones who maintain the US GAAP taxonomy, our role took on a lot more significance. So we built up a small team. I know you've met Louis Mathern, who leads our effort back at Norwalk, and developing the US GAAP taxonomy, maintaining it, updating it, etc. So it's been a very important and integral part of what we do in Norwalk. And it seems important to integrate the taxonomy with standard setting. It just seems like it's a natural fit.
So that's significant, I think, right? Because XBRL has always been this SEC thing out in the ether to a lot of our CPAs who aren't in the public company arena.
Right.
And now the standard setters are maintaining the taxonomy, right? That's the significance.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you think about public companies, and we serve constituents that are not public companies, and so you think about, well, what are the implications for non-public entities like not-for-profits or private companies? And I know, from a not-for-profit perspective, that's what we are. We're a not-for-profit organization, 501c3. We issue financial statements, etc. And we actually would like to issue our financial statements in XBRL. We developed a set of financial statements, but found that we had to do a whole bunch of extensions. And so we decided not to publish our XBRL financial statements because we knew that for public companies, they were trying to narrow the number of extensions that were going to be created. And so we didn't want to send the wrong message. And so the question is, should there be a not-for-profit taxonomy? And then, believe it or not, I've also gotten the question about the GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and whether there should be a state and local government taxonomy.
And, the intersection of all this stuff, right, the Data Act at the federal level that's been talked about, we got involved, we tagged our financials, and we've supported the Data Act, and we're now working with FASB on the not-for-profit taxonomy because we believe it is important, which is kind of exciting that you guys are moving this along. But the whole government, state, local, federal, it's the same issue I think that we've heard at this SEC level, right? Investors, which we're all investors in our government and not-for-profits in many cases. Yes. Transparency, accountability, efficiency, all those things are benefits of getting this done. It's a big project, or a lot of projects. But
it is, and I think that in some ways we haven't even scratched the surface of the usability of XBRL information. And in some ways, I think supply creates its own demand. Yeah. And so as companies come online with their SEC reporting, I think there'll be more and more of an appetite. And I just think there's a wealth of groups and governments, et cetera, out there that could benefit from XBRL reporting.
Yeah, in all those different segments, right?
Right.
Now, and I've heard a couple stories here, but how you as the standard setters, FAF, FASB, et cetera, have actually been able to use XBRL to research and check standards much more quickly than you ever did before.
Right, I mean, it's interesting because we found a use for XBRL that we probably never would have thought of in taking on the responsibility, but when the FAF established the post-implementation review process, where we will take a standard that's been out for a few years and has been implemented, and then we test it to see how it's working, is it being effective, et cetera. The PIR team was able to went downstairs to Lewis and said, I need some information on FIN 48. It was on certain tax positions that we were working on, and they were able to get the data on what are the types of disclosures being made. Are they, long disclosures? Are they short disclosures? Are they covering the requirements of FIN 48, et cetera? And otherwise, they would have had to go through either online, individual companies' reports or paper reports, et cetera. So it definitely made that process more efficient.
So, and I heard, one of the stories like literally like from weeks to hours almost.
Right, exactly, right.
Which is pretty phenomenal.
It is amazing.
And here's what I think is exciting from, there's going to be more and more standards. I mean, the private company initiative, all these other things. So our members are always feeling that standard overload. So to me, this has two things. It would allow us as everyday CPAs to research on our own. I remember the old accounting trends and techniques that we used to do, right?
Yes. How do you do a disclosure?
Yeah. So I'm going to do this new transaction. How should I do it?
Right.
Whereas that could be like real time almost, right?
Right.
And then I guess for you guys as standard setters, it reminds me like an RSS feed from social media. You'll be able to get real time information about how your standards are being implemented.
Right. And going the other way, as people are implementing XBRL, they can go from the tag right to the authoritative standard. So when they're trying to understand what the tag means, they can go right to the codification and understand what the requirements are.
So those are things that I think no one's talking about in this space that I think is extremely significant and saving time, which is the biggest factor all the CPAs are dealing with, right? How am I going to handle all these standards? Well, if they could research it and check it and get information quicker, that might help offset some of this.
All in one place.